Hi there, I just want to say congratulations for making it this far. You've done a great job thus far, and I'm sure you will only continue to grow as a developer as we depart ways after this section. In the previous section, we looked at a couple of ways to think outside of the box of deployment a little, and to make the task a little easier or less daunting. Before I leave, I would like to go over a couple more things with you. I want to go over some common problems, or gotchas, that deploying an application can bring. I also want to go over some of the things that you should have learned throughout the course. And then finally, I want to leave you with some ways you can continue your education. In this video titled, What You Learned, I want to go over some common problems we come across during deployment. And I would like to look at the goals of this course, what you learned, and make sure that we were successful in teaching you. So let's take a second to look at some common problems, or gotchas, that we come across, or that you might come across when deploying your own application. When deploying an application, especially when built on top of the Laravel framework, you need to really pay attention to software or system requirements. I can't tell you how much time I wasted trying to troubleshoot a deployment problem I had because the system I was spinning up just didn't support Laravel. To be specific, I would keep an eye on the PHP version. Laravel 5.1 will not work if you have anything less than 5.5.9. And if you're using something like Bluemix's PHP Build Pack that jumps from 5.5.30 to 5.6.14, it can become a real headache. On the topic of Bluemix and its PHP Build Pack, keep in mind that Bluemix at the time of recording this defaults to the Lucid 64 application stack, while the PHP Build Pack only supports CF Linux FS2. Now you can easily fix this in your manifest.yaml file, but it was an annoying little bug for me while recording this course of videos. The last thing I'll say on the topic of Laravel before moving on is that you may not have any problem deploying a Laravel application. But if you still can't see your website, a common mistake is that you forgot to point your website or subdomain to Laravel's public folder or root directory. One of the most annoying things I've noticed when working with a team is all of the merge conflicts I get. We talked a little about this in section 6, but I just want to reiterate and warn you. It's highly suggested that you commit frequently and keep your pull requests small. Finally, as soon as you see that the master has changed, rebase your code and keep it as up to date as you can. Doing this will A, prevent merge conflicts, and B, even when it does happen, it'll make resolving them a whole lot easier. The last bit of advice on this topic that I can add is adopting a modular code architecture like MVC will also help you prevent merge conflicts. Laravel has been structured in a way that can help you do this more effectively in PHP. When deploying a database, you need to make sure Laravel is including all of the proper dependencies to allow it to work. PDO and PDO_MySQL aren't installed by default with Laravel. This simple configuration wasted hours of development time for me before I was able to troubleshoot the problem. One last thing to think about is security, especially if you're hosting your code publicly on GitHub, or maybe even sharing sensitive and personal information to make a local dev environment to work with your team through Git. I warn you to pay close attention with what you're sharing with them. It's easy to add a computer password or server username and password just to get an environment running properly, and yet now your whole team, even team members that don't have the right security clearing, may now have access to it. Whenever you put sensitive information in your code, make sure you do it in a way where people can't see it or easily access it. One way of doing this is using environment-specific variables through the command line. Laravel also allows you to set some of this through the .env file it provides. So the goal of this course was to teach you the basic ins and outs of an application deployment process. We kept things high level for the most part, but we did try to dive in and get our hands dirty when it made sense. You learned everything from the initial setup to actually deploying your Laravel application, to some high-level concepts, and then some different ways to make deployment bearable. It's fair to say that you've learned a lot in this course, and no one course is going to teach you everything there is to know about deploying applications. Technology continues to change and improve, so your education must continue also.